Ready, set, ready to go, huh? Welcome to Mary, Ween, and You. Glad to have you along with us. Very fascinating show, folks. I hope you will not go away. I've got the two prosecutors who had great success with the Gregg trial. Gregg, the 15-year-old girl, she is now in prison, and we're going to talk about the whole trial. But I have a couple of things to tell you about. First of all, of course, the main thing is today is voting day. What? I thought it was in 5 weeks. Well, no. This voting day is in Jackson, and it's to fill the seat of Angelique Lee, who confessed to taking bribes and quit her seat on Jackson City Council a few weeks ago. She's to be sentenced in November, by the way. So the polls are open. They open up at 7 o'clock, and they're open until 7 o'clock this evening. And please get out and vote. This is what the whole thing is all about and what we live for. And we want to care about our cities and our countries and all this stuff. Well, okay, voting day. So this is for Ward 2 to fill this seat. And here are the people who are seeking the post: Catherine Robinson, Marcus Cheatham, Celestial Gordon Griffin, Brian Mosey, Montine Tina Clay, and Cheryl Matoy. So I don't know who those people are. I don't know anything about them. But anyway, so pick one of them and please go and vote. And that's the best thing you can do. And then in a few weeks, of course, we'll have the biggie for the country. And also tonight, if you're interested in, and you should be, we should all be interested in the national big deal tonight. You know what the big deal is, don't you? It's the vice presidential debate between the buffoon. Oh, excuse me. What's his name? Oh, what's his name? What is his name? What's the name?
You talking about Timmy?
Yes, Timmy and CD. Well, that'll be. I hope it's more interesting. There was one a few years ago. I'll never forget. It was Tim Kaine was the Democrat. I think he was running with Hillary Clinton, and it must have been Pence, who I always thought was kind of Casper milquetoast anyway. And Tim Kaine was so obnoxious. It's like, oh, I have to turn my TV off or else I'll kill it, Well, I hope this one is a little bit better. So that's kind of brings you up to date on things. By the way, there's a log truck that caught fire on I-20 early this morning, but it's been cleared off. Something happened, I guess, a tire blew out, and the guy got over to the side, but it created a big problem on I-20, seemed to be westbound. But that's cleared up as far as we know. So let me welcome Catherine Newman and Michael Smith. They are both assistant district attorneys, and I'm saying Rankin County, but the district is confusing, so I just say Rankin County. Welcome to the show. How did you two get picked to do this, to do the Gregg trial? Do you have a say?
So Bubba actually assigns us a specific type of case. So when I first started with Bubba back in January of 19, I came on to take over the sex crimes and the crimes against children.
Talking about Bubba Bramlett, by the way, right? Bubba Bramlett, the DA, in case people don't know.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay. And so, Michael, what about you?
Yeah, so like Catherine said, we all kind of have our own caseloads, and as we, Catherine and some other ADAs in our office were working this case up for trial, and as we got a couple weeks out from trial, I was asked to come on and help Catherine. I tend to like to handle a lot of stuff whenever expert witnesses are involved in cases, and so we knew this was going to be a case involving expert witnesses and psychiatrists and psychologists, and obviously Carly's mental health, and so I was just asked to help Catherine, so I just rode her coattails.
Had you two ever worked together before on a case?
We absolutely have. Michael came in and at some point was also handling the crimes against children and the sex cases. We kind of split the alphabet, and so the two of us were able to try a couple of those cases together. Back in January, I took over murders as well, and so that was what Michael was talking about. So I had handled this case from the beginning. We knew we worked well together, and yes, Michael was a great asset to come in and help handle that expert aspect.
Okay, let me tell the audience, by the way, how you can get a hold of us. You can text us at 601-879-4395. Again, 601-879-4395. And you can watch us because we live stream at supertalk.fm/Mary, so you can see what we look like. My burning question that I've been thinking about this ever since this happened was, I remember I don't normally sit down and watch TV because I'm busy and I'm doing things and I'm walking around, so I'm listening to it. And there was a news story a few months ago, turns out to be last March, about a 14-year-old girl who was arrested for murder, and she was given a $1 million bond. And I thought, what? And so then I went to my TV to look at it, and here is a picture of this girl, and she's being held in adult detention. It's like, whoa, what is going on here? Who made the decision that something was amiss with this person? I mean, this is not a normal 14-year-old. This is not a little girl going into freshman year of high school or whatever. There's something going on. Who made that decision for the bond and then adult detention?
So, excuse me. In Mississippi, if you're over the age of 13 and you commit certain violent offenses with a firearm, for instance, murder, attempted murder, you are automatically considered an adult in the eyes of the law. And so Carly Gregg, as soon as she committed these crimes on March the 19th, 2024, was adult in the state of Mississippi. She went before our county court judge, Judge David Morrow, and Judge Morrow does a fantastic job there. He has bond guidelines, and they are specific to each crime. And so Carly was actually given, I think it was maybe $500,000 on the murder and $500,000 on the attempted murder, which is in line with our state bond guidelines. The state of Mississippi, we actually requested, the defendant came in and wanted a reduction in bond. We requested that her bond be denied, that she be held without bond, because we believe that she is a danger to society. Judge Morrow took up that motion and decided that the $1 million bond was accurate. When the case was transferred over to circuit court, the defense again asked that her bond be reduced,
right.
And we asked that she be held without bond, and Judge Dewey Arthur granted our motion and denied her bond.
And so there she stayed, as was appropriate, right? Nobody had any, y'all didn't have any second thoughts about that. Because she is now convicted of a murder and in prison for life without, did she have a juvenile record, number one? And number two, because she's been convicted as an adult, could that record be opened, or has it been, or how does that work? Or what can you say about that?
We did not find a record in the sense of anything that she had been involved with law enforcement or anything along those lines. Some stuff did come out at trial about her school record and some trouble that she had been in at school. I know that it came out that she had been involved in, if you want to call it, a cheating scandal. Basically, she took a picture of some answers to a test, I think, in class and distributed it to some of her fellow classmates. It also came out that she had brought a knife to school a couple years before. But as far as involvement with law enforcement or anything like that, there was nothing involved.
Yep. What was it like finding a jury? It seemed like jury selection went pretty fast. I have not been on a jury, and I've had to get off of being on a jury because I'm media and because I'm also strongly opinionated, which probably would not necessarily be a good thing to be on a jury. But yours didn't take that long, did it? Was it one day or two, or was it even 3?
No, so the actual voir dire process, the fancy term of jury selection.
Voir dire. That's what they say when you're not in Mississippi.
That's right, yeah. Well, I'm not fancy, so I just call it jury selection.
That's right. No, voir dire is what we say in Mississippi.
Right.
I know the first time I heard it outside Mississippi, I'm like, what? They ain't talking right. But but anyway, go ahead.
So we started on Monday morning, and I want to say about lunchtime, we had gotten through most of the process. The judge excused the potential jurors, and then they came back after lunch, and then we actually were able to sit the 12 people and the 2 alternates. That is pretty standard for us on a non-capital murder case,
okay.
Right? So this was not a death penalty case where you would have individual voir dire of the participants, the potential jurors. This is kind of a you go through, the judge asks questions, we're able to ask questions, and then the defense attorneys ask questions.
Well, I think that's amazing, that you found a jury so quickly. By the way, people may say, well, why wasn't it a capital murder case? Well, because there was not another crime committed. She didn't steal something and then kill or do something else. You have to have another offense of some kind, and then you kill to be capital. So that's why, folks, that's why that's why it was a life, and she got the life sentence from you all. So that was really good. Carly, did she ever try to make any kind of contact with jury members or the jury panel as a whole, looking for sympathy or something like that? Did you ever observe anything like that? And do you watch for things like that?
I'm not aware. Surely she didn't make any contact with the jury. Judge Dewey Arthur, who presided over this case, obviously runs his courtroom with a strong gavel, and did a great job in this case, as do all of our circuit judges in Rankin and Madison counties. But as far as whether or not she really sought any sympathy from the jury, I mean, there were a few times, obviously, during the trial that, seeing some of the videos, we did see her crying or showing some emotion. I know Kevin Camp and Catherine were on another show yesterday, and I know Kevin during that show mentioned the fact that they had not shown Carly. They had talked about some of the videos and some of the other things, but they had not, I don't think, shown Carly some of those videos and things that actually came out of trial. And so, according to him, that was her emotion showing during that time. But I mean, she did show some emotion. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff out there about other things she was doing during the trial too, eating and laughing.
I was going to ask you about her demeanor throughout the trial. Well, I didn't get into the courtroom. Should have, now that I think about it, because I have covered murder trials in the past, but it's been a long time. But so that was her demeanor, though. It was kind of up and down, but she was not playing to the jury.
For the pretrial hearings, they had dressed her in somewhat like a Catholic schoolgirl attire.
Boy, didn't she just look like that?
And so I think that probably, the media response to that was not positive, and so they had her dressed more appropriately during the trial. When COVID happened, we rearranged our courtroom, and so it's sort of strange now. Both our table and the defense table are facing the jury the whole time. So the jury is able to actually watch our faces, their faces, and the defendant.
That is interesting.
I will say this. One thing I noticed was when we were playing the video of where she actually shoots and kills her mom.
And that has been played on the air, by the way. You can find that. You just Google it, and you'll be able to find it. Yeah.
When we were playing that in the courtroom, allegedly this is the first time Carly's seen it. And I never get to watch her face because we're sitting at the table beside them. But I was standing watching the television beside where the jury box is. And she did not let out one single tear, not one piece of raw emotion when she watched the video of her killing her mother. And that to me was so telling, and I'm still convinced that she has no remorse for what she's done.
Sociopathic. Well, we're not doctors and we don't play them on the radio, but that's the sort of that you get from a sociopath who they detach and, completely far away. Like, that's not anybody I know. But was there ever a judgment on what her mental state, obviously when she committed it, but did anybody ever say, or did the defense ever say, wow, it's insanity, that she was insane? I've heard this explained before, where you can be a normal person and you can go nuts for a while and kill somebody, and then you go back to your normal self. So there was a time when you were temporarily insane. Did that come up in any way?
So yeah, obviously, I mean, her primary defense was that she was insane at the time that this crime was committed. In Mississippi, we basically talk about competency and we talk about insanity. And when we talk about competency, we're talking about, are you competent to stand trial when your case comes before the court? Can you assist your attorneys? Can you, do you know the crimes that you've been charged with? That kind of stuff. And she was seen by Dr. Amanda Gugliano with the state hospital at Whitfield, and Dr. Gugliano evaluated her and did come to the conclusion that she was competent to stand trial. At the time, Dr. Gugliano has handled a lot of cases for us. She's very well known, and she testified during the trial to that effect. Obviously, her primary defense was that she was insane in Mississippi. That means, did she know right from wrong at the time that the crime was committed?
I was going to ask that.
And so we had Dr. Jason Pickett, who evaluated her and who obviously testified during trial that she did know the difference between right and wrong. And it was a very long testimony. Obviously, people have talked about his 85-page report that he rendered, but but she did know the difference between right and wrong, and that was his opinion. She put on an expert, Dr. Andrew Clark from up in Boston, and obviously his testimony was that she didn't appreciate the difference between right and wrong. If you go back and watch the trial, we made motions. We don't think that Dr. Clark testified consistent with what the standard for what we call McNaughton, which is the insanity defense in Mississippi. We don't think Dr. Clark testified consistent with what the standard for insanity was in Mississippi. And obviously the jury didn't believe Dr. Clark's testimony either, yes. or they didn't believe that she was insane at the time. So yeah, as far as competence, she was deemed competent to stand trial, and the jury makes the determination as to whether or not she was insane, and they didn't buy that argument.
Were they studying her? Could you so you were facing the jury, could you see them, were they studying her with rapt attention, or what were they doing? Were they all engaged?
So
all the
it's
time?
interesting. We're sitting across from them, but I try not to stare at them because you don't want them to
Right.
think that we're intimidating them or that we're watching them. And so I do think that they were, they're cognizant of what's happening in the courtroom. They were paying attention to the witnesses while they were on the stand, but of course they would also look over at Carly at times. I think the jury was very attentive. It was a long trial, a 5-day trial. I think they heard from, I think it was 19 witnesses. But at every time and every step of the way, they were listening and paying attention. And I think that's what Michael said. I mean, they just didn't believe that she was insane. Even Dr. Clark said that there were times where it appeared Carly knew what she was doing.
And they did see the tape that we all got to see where she did it and came and sat down. And I wondered where she put the gun because I saw her come and sit down. I heard noise. I didn't hear bullets. I didn't hear anything being fired. So did she have a suppressor on or something? Or
you do hear 3 shots in the
because I have to go back and listen to it.
Yeah, absolutely. She comes in. She comes in from letting the dogs out, and she, according to her, whenever she took the dogs out, she said that's when she blacked out or had this dissociative state. That was obviously her defense. But when she comes in, she listens. She hears that her mom is in her room. She proceeds directly to her mom and stepdad's room. She gets the gun. She comes back. A few seconds later, you hear 2 shots in fairly rapid succession, and then you hear a 3rd shot, and it's all within 5 to 7 seconds of each other. So you do hear the 3 shots, and then you see her come back into the view of the camera in the kitchen. You hear her put the gun down behind her back.
She's got her left hand behind her. It was like, okay, I guess I missed. I didn't hear the pow, 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 but so I figured, well, that was it. But what did she do? Because the next thing was, she sat down in the chair, and then all of a sudden you see her turn around and do something with both hands. I'm thinking, what'd she do with that gun? But you said she sat on it or put it behind her, right?
Right. Yeah, she put it down behind her. You can hear it. You can hear it contact the.
It's like a clink on the stool.
Right. Music tells us we got to take a break. We'll be back in just a few. I'm Mary Whedon and you, the prosecutors in the Carly Gregg case. Fascinating, huh? We've got the successful prosecutors of the Carly Gregg case. And congratulations to you both again. I've got Michael Smith and Catherine Newman. They are assistant district attorneys for, Rankin County is whether it's for the district-wide, but we're just saying Rankin County because it's pretty convenient to say it that way. And so we've been having discussion about lots of things about this case and lots of things about her. If you get a hold of us, you can do so by texting us at 601-879-4395, and you can watch us. Of course, we live stream supertalk.fm/Mary. That's a good way to. If you missed out on something, you can go back and catch it. Before we went to break, Lance, you had your light on. There was something you were going to say. Are we hearing from people? We have some. No,
I was just listening and waiting to comment. If
yeah, go ahead.
Thought they were. Y'all have done such an amazing job. I just talking about the difference in expressions during the trial. I found that extremely fascinating because, as the pictures illustrate, it was almost like every emotion that you could see there was prevalent, and you don't know if that's an act or what, but. I just found that insight to be very interesting there.
Was there anything about this case that you two disagreed with, your approaches or your thoughts, or were you always 100% in agreement, or how did that work between you two as the attorneys? And they've worked other cases before, by the way.
Right. Like Catherine, I think we mentioned either earlier on the air, is that obviously Catherine and I worked together multiple times on several other cases. We both handled crimes against children for a while, and I don't really think that there was anything that we disagreed on. Not that as far as anything. I mean, usually the biggest agreements or the biggest decisions we have to make is obviously what evidence we need to put in. We were on the same page, obviously, with that, and then what order we want to take witnesses, who's going to take. But Catherine and I have worked together enough that we know. I know that she likes to do voir dire. I know that she likes to do final close. So I don't necessarily like to do voir dire, and I'm fine with her doing final close.
Why do you not like to do voir dire? What is it about the people, or what topic, or what? I
don't know. It's a lot harder being up there. Sometimes you think in your mind that jokes are funny and things like that, and whenever you get in there, they're not funny. And so I just think Catherine is very good at it. She obviously has a real easy style with the potential jury members, and is able to engage with them very well. And it just depends on the type of case that you're dealing with, but. I mean, we pretty much knew from the get-go that Catherine was going to do voir dire on this case. And like I said, I don't really think we disagreed on anything throughout the entire trial.
Amazing.
Catherine and I talked about it early on, and obviously it ended up being a very high-profile case, and Court TV was there. And
what did you think about that, by the way, having Court TV here? Was anybody surprised? Or what was their attitude? Like, oh, they're in Mississippi trying a 14-year-old as an adult. Was there an attitude like that from Court TV, or do you know?
No, ma'am. Everyone that was there on behalf of the media was so kind and respectful and just kind of sat to themselves over in the courtroom. They weren't intrusive. It was a little unusual for us, certainly. I mean, most of the time we come, we do our job, and we go home, and nobody really knows what we do. And so it was interesting, certainly, to have them there every step of the way. I mean, we've had people reach out and say, oh, you guys did great, or, oh, what about this? And so it's funny to see all these people's ideas on what we could have done or should have done as well.
And I think kind of to piggyback on that as well, like Catherine said, it wasn't intrusive or anything, and obviously good. Judge Arthur put a gag order on everyone kind of before trial started, but the cameras in the courtroom were very small. They're kind of like what you guys have here in the studio. There weren't big cameras sitting all over the courtroom or anything like that.
Yeah, you don't have to have those anymore. I mean, you can do it on your phone, but yeah.
Right. And Catherine and I talked about it early on. I didn't want to get caught up in watching what people were saying on the news or in the media. I wanted us to try the case like we wanted to try it, and I didn't want us to be influenced by people saying, "Oh, the prosecutors are doing a horrible job," or the other side's doing this or the other side's doing that. I just wanted us to. I mean, we knew what evidence we had to put on. We knew what the elements of the crimes were. We knew our case better than anybody else, and so we just wanted to focus on what we had to do and doing our job, and didn't want to get caught up in what the media were saying or anybody else.
I understand you said before the show that you were on with Nancy Grace yesterday. Everybody knows who Nancy Grace is, right? How was she to work with?
She was fantastic. She was, during the break, she was very kind and friendly. It was a panel, including Nancy. There were 6 of us. And so Kevin Cant, one of the defense attorneys, was also on. And so, I think keeping it fair, right? She gave him a chance to explain some things, gave us a chance to explain some things. She had a psychologist, an ME doctor there, and then also another lady that has some sort of podcast that's criminal related. So it was interesting. It's been the whole process has been very odd for us, just because, again, we're not used to having those cameras in there, and so quite frankly, I ignored them.
Which is a good thing to do. I mean, you can't play the cameras.
I do want to say this too. When we talked about, did we get along? Did we, were there any things that we didn't agree with on the trial? When we have a case that's this big, this is a full team effort. So Michael and I were in the courtroom. We were the face, so to speak, of our office. But every attorney in our office, every staff member in our office, and that includes our Rankin and our Madison office, and certainly our boss, the DA, Bubba Bramlett, had input, helped us with things, doing research, getting things ready, getting witnesses lined up. And so oddly enough, this was both of our first murder trials. And so, it was, so that was interesting too, where it's not really that different than other violent offenses. But it was certainly, this is nationally televised, and we want to make sure that we put on a good face for our office. And it was certainly a team effort.
Well, did you know there was going to be national media there, much ahead of time, or Court TV, get in touch with the office before anything started happening, or did they get in on it as the trial was about to begin?
I think Court TV had been covering some of the stuff and maybe piggybacking off some of the local coverage, but obviously we started seeing some of the filings coming in on the electronic court system where they had put in their notice that they were going to be there, obviously, which Mississippi law requires. And then the week before, we started seeing some of the Court TV people setting up downstairs. And so, it kind of, they kind of swoop in. Obviously, they're covering they're covering trials all over the country, and they kind of swooped in right there the week before and got all their equipment set up and had a tent set up in front of the courthouse and everything. So, we knew it was going to be covered, at least from a local level, and then Court TV came in, obviously there at the end, and covered the whole thing live from start to finish. Before
we even allowed cameras in the courtroom, certain judges would do that, in Mississippi. And there was a trial, Anita Kressick. She was the girlfriend of Tracy Hansen, both of whom were charged with killing Trooper Bruce Ladner. That was a big deal. And so the judge was James Thomas. I remember this, and he's passed now, but and he's gone on from whatever court that was up into, I think, appeals court. But he told us, somehow we met him ahead of time, and he told us that my photographer and me, he was more a producer than anything, because, I mean, he knew everybody and everything. But the judge said, you two can go up in the balcony and shoot from there, but with these provisos, nothing of the jury, of course, and nothing of me when I'm smoking, because back in those days you could smoke in the courtroom, and no audio. It was like, that's fine. That was really fine, and we adhered to those stipulations. Were not any big ones, and it worked out really well. We were really proud that we could do that. There was another one. Come to think of it, Judge Dickey. Can't remember Dickey's last name. Anyway, Judge Dickey let us shoot through a small window in it was a temporary courtroom for Hines County, and we could shoot somebody through there, and I can't remember who it was. But anyway, this was big stuff, for us to be able to go up and that was good. And so as long as you're unobtrusive, that's fine, and I was so happy that now you can do all that kind of stuff. Did you ever, when you were going through everything, was there ever the motive, and that sounds like a stupid question, yeah, the motive was to kill my mother, would be if you were to ask her, but was there something behind that, or did you not need to know that, or what? What was that?
So in Mississippi, we have certain elements of crimes that we, as the prosecution, bear the burden of meeting, right? We have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Carly Gregg, on or about March the 19th, 2024, in Rankin County, did, basically with deliberate design, kill and murder her mom without authority of law. So that's just the murder part of it. We'll focus on that. Nowhere in the elements does it require that we prove why. Just that she had the intent to kill. And so the defense tried to kind of harp in on that during their closing argument. The state hasn't even told you why. Well, we don't have to. We think that it certainly had to do with the fact that this is a teenage girl that mom had found out about her burner phones and her vape pens. And, mom was confronted by one of Carly's friends at school just that afternoon. He tells her, hey, Carly, I'm worried about Carly. She's getting high all the time. She's got these burner phone and these vape pens. So we know that mom confronted Carly about it on the way home from school. Carly says mom was upset with her. And then even their doctor said that this put Carly in a crisis. And I think that was important because she doesn't say, oh, I was so upset that mom found out about this. It's more from a selfish standpoint of mom found out about this, and now I'm upset that mom is going to punish me. And we think that is the why, but we're not required to prove that.
And she obviously had the opportunity to take the stand, didn't she? But she did not.
That's correct.
Did not avail herself of it because, probably most people who commit crimes like that would be pretty stupid to take the stand, but you never know. I mean, if somebody's really off into their own, narcissistic world or whatever, they'd be like, well, I didn't do anything wrong, so of course I would stand it. But how many people actually stood up and spoke on behalf of Carly and who said, hey, she's a great kid. She didn't do this or whatever they might have said. Were there a lot of people who did that? Because I didn't keep up with just everything, and I wish I would have now. But were there instances like that where you heard a different point of view, like she was so great and all this kind of stuff, and she would never do something like this, blah, blah, blah? Anything like that?
So, obviously, as Catherine said, there were, I think, 19 witnesses from start to finish. Her stepdad, Mr. Smiley, took the stand. We actually put Mr. Smiley on during our case in chief. He gave statements to police. Everyone heard the 911 call, which was, absolutely chilling, that from where he called 911 right after Carly shot him through the shoulder. And then you hear him on there finding Ashley Smiley, his wife, dead in Carly's bedroom. And really, I think Catherine and I and everyone we've spoken to, it's one of the most chilling 911 calls that anyone will probably ever hear.
Is that online where we could hear that? It is?
Yeah, I believe a lot of people have published that. It's certainly out there where people can hear it. But Mr. Smiley obviously has rekindled, I guess, his relationship with Carly. He was in support of her during the trial, so he pretty much made that known during his testimony. Now he said the same story that he's always told. He said that he came home and he received a text from Ashley's phone, which was later found out to be Carly texting from Ashley's phone. But he came home and basically as soon as he walked into the house, Carly opened up fire on him 3 times, hitting him in the shoulder once, and but he kept the same story the entire time. Same story he told the 911 operator, same story he told investigators after the case, and so he did during her case in chief. She did put on a friend of hers that she put on, one of her minor friends, and then we obviously put on some of her friends too during our case in chief.
Got one more segment. Man, this time is flying. I knew it would. I want to talk more about the stepfather. When we come back on the other side, it's Mary Whedon and you, and we're talking with the prosecutors in the Carly Gregg trial. Stay where you are. Back for our final segment. It's one of those hours. It's just flying past us. I've got Catherine Newman and Michael Smith. They are ADAs, Assistant District Attorneys with Rankin County, and they successfully prosecuted the Carly Gregg case. What is right now? What did I say we were going to talk about on the way back? Something.
So they filed a motion.
Oh, the stepfather. Yes, I wanted to know. Is there something going on there? The implication was in some reporting or whatever that I've seen, like she had some sort of connection with the stepfather that maybe raised eyebrows. That's about the kindest way I can put that. Or did they just have a regular stepdaughter stepfather relationship? Was there anything to it?
So I think that, as humans, we want to know the whys of things. We want to try to analyze people, and we will never know, other than what we've seen or heard, what happened in that house. But we do know this. Carly has not alleged to anyone that she was ever sexually abused. In fact, she was seen by multiple therapists and counselors. She never reported sexual abuse. She was seen by Dr. Gugliano and Dr. Pickett. As Michael said earlier, she specifically told them she was not sexually abused. And the same thing for their own expert, Dr. Clark. And so while we might not understand why a victim processes trauma a certain way, it doesn't mean that there was something nefarious between Heath and Carly, right? Everyone responds to trauma differently. It may not be the way I would react if I was in his shoes. But we certainly, our office doesn't want to speak on what he should or how he should be grieving.
And where is Carly now? Last we knew, of course, that she was held in the adult detention center in Rankin County. Then she got convicted. If there's ever time to get to this too, how long it took the jury to decide and what did you think? But anyway, where is she right now?
So now, and anyone can go on the MDOC website, Mississippi Department of Corrections website, and see that Carly has been transferred out to CMCF in Pearl, the Central Mississippi Correctional Facility, and she's there. They have what they call the Youthful Offender Unit, which is where they hold anyone under 18 who is in MDOC custody. So she's being held there with other juveniles or people under the age of 18. You can go online and read about the Youthful Offender Unit. There they offer academic classes. They offer psychiatric and emotional counseling, therapy. They basically offer anything that someone under the age of 18 who's going through that would need. So that she's being held in Pearl at the Youthful Offender Unit now, and that's where she'll be held until she turns 18 and is then transferred over into the adult prison.
And she is life without.
That's right.
Meaning life without parole.
That's right.
Now, they're asking for a new trial, apparently, the defense is. They want a new trial. For what reason, I don't know. I was thinking that when I first started, working on this, getting ready for the show, I'm thinking, I must ask them how good it feels to let down after something like this. This goes on and on and on. You're going to be living with this for quite a few more years, maybe, perhaps. So what is your role, and do you think, how do you think that, who decides if there's a new trial? Is it the trial judge or whatever, and how long does that take, and so on?
So they filed a motion for JNOV, judgment notwithstanding the verdict, meaning the judge should set aside the jury's verdict and basically either give her a new trial or just set it aside and say, you know what, she's not guilty. We will file a response to that. This happens in every case where a defendant is convicted. So this is nothing new to us. Oftentimes we don't even have a hearing because it's up to the trial judge to grant that motion. And, it's pretty rare that a judge says, oh yeah, there was such bad error in this trial that I oversaw that you should get a new trial. And so I would assume, based off the emails I received, that they want an actual hearing on it. And so Judge Arthur will have to hear from both sides. If that motion is denied, then they'll have 30 days from that time to file an appeal with the Court of Appeals or the Mississippi Supreme Court. That process takes a little while. Usually once the final brief is submitted, then the Court of Appeals or Supreme Court renders an opinion within 270 days. So, I mean, we're looking at
time, yeah.
right another year and a half, possibly 2 years.
So, but you have or will be moving on to other cases, obviously.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
this isn't gonna be the only one that you're with for a while.
No, I mean we both have very very full caseloads, and our court actually just started a new term yesterday, so we are on to the next ones now, and on the part of the appeal and Carly's appeal, I just want to give a huge shout out to our Attorney General's office. They handle all of our criminal appeals
For the whole state.
For the whole state, and so they will certainly be handling this one as well. And like I said, I just want to give a huge shout out to them, because once we get through the motion for J&OV, notwithstanding the verdict, like Catherine said, and we have our hearing, then they will have their chance to file their official appeal, if you want to call it that, with the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeals, and then our case will basically go to the Attorney General's office, and their people up there in their criminal appeals division will handle that, and they do a wonderful job. And I can't imagine the caseload that they have up there doing all the appeals for the entire state of Mississippi. So just a huge shout out to them as well. And so yeah, we'll handle it for a little bit longer, and then it'll go to them, and then they'll take the ball from there.
Have you ever asked them directly for any kind of input into any of your cases where, or they'll have input, but where you specifically say, hey, I need this, that, or the other thing happens?
Absolutely. Mary, that's a great question. So actually, one of the other attorneys in our office that was helping with this case with us reached out to a friend at the Attorney General's office. And so we were the first case in the state of Mississippi since the law changed, making it where a juvenile convicted of murder faced either 20 to 40 years or life if affixed by a jury. And so we reached out to them about our issue. We did not think that their expert was able to render an opinion. We thought it was a diminished capacity, not McNaughton, which the state of Mississippi doesn't allow. And so he reached out to two people there to say, hey, what are you guys seeing? What should we do? And they, of course, recommended, that we bifurcate the trial. So you talked about the jury. So the jury went out to determine guilt or full acquittal or not guilty by reason of insanity. And then once they decided that Carly Gregg was guilty and was not insane at the time, then we went into the sentencing phase. And so it was sort of a bifurcated trial in that sense. And then the jury went back out to determine whether she would get life with parole, life without parole, or let the judge decide. And I want to comment just a little bit about that, Mary, if we have enough time.
Yeah, we do.
So we offered 40 years to Carly Gregg in our initial plea offer.
Right, I remember that.
The week before trial, we met with the judge, we met with the defense attorneys. He said, both sides need to see if you can get this resolved. And so we offered to let Carly Gregg plead open, meaning the judge would decide what her punishment would be, that we would agree to null pros the tampering case, and that she could plead open to the murder and attempted murder. And so when it went to the sentencing phase, the defense was actually begging the jury to do the same thing that we had offered to let the judge do the week before we'd had a trial. And so for us, here we are. We thought that 40 years was reasonable, but certainly we believe that life without parole is the appropriate sentence for her based off the facts and circumstances and the fact that she still has shown zero remorse for her actions.
How long did the jury take to deliberate? How long did they take?
I think they were out about 2 hours on the guilt phase, and then I think they were out about an hour on the sentencing phase. And they did have a question during the sentencing phase.
Oh, the sentencing phase.
Yeah, during the sentencing phase, just about what the difference between, I guess, life with parole or life without parole. What does that exactly mean? And there's lots of case law out there on what the judge can say or cannot say. And basically we just tell them you have all the information. Please go back and deliberate, which is what we told them during that time.
Nobody can ever decide or figure out. You can't make bets on what a jury's going to do, as they say. You don't know. But did you think it was going to take longer than 2 hours to this is a big case and all that kind of stuff. Did you think it would take longer than 2 hours to decide guilt?
So we've both been criminal defense attorneys and now prosecutors.
Okay.
And so I can tell you that for me, that waiting period from either side between when it goes back to the jury and when you hear that they've knocked on the door and they have a verdict seems like an eternity. So the 2 hours for me seemed like it was 2 weeks.
Yeah. And Catherine and I, we worked on crimes against children and things like that before, and we've had juries go out and take 20 minutes, and then we've had juries go out where I had a full confession by the defendant, and they went out and they took 4 hours. So you have no idea, and we knew that it would obviously take. I mean, juries, they do a great job, and I think they always get it right. And they take their job very seriously, and which everybody should be proud of, whether you're on the defense or the state. And so we knew there was a ton of evidence in this case. There were videos, there were lots of physical evidence that was put in, there were pictures, there were different things that we knew they were going to have to go back there and kind of wade through, and we knew that would take them some time. And so we expected it to take at least an hour. And then they also got the case back to deliberate right about lunchtime, and so so we knew they would probably have lunch while they were back there. And again, you never know. It could take 20 minutes, it could take 4 hours, it could take 8 hours. You really don't know when you put 12 people in the box.
How long do they take in the second phase?
It took about an hour.
Oh, about an hour, you said. About an hour. Oh, who knows? Only they will know. Only the jury will know. Had any of those? Well, I don't know either. If any of those people ever had served on juries before or anything like that, I don't know if you know that.
So that's one of the questions we asked during voir dire, and I'll be honest, Ms. Mary, I don't remember if they're on the whole panel. There certainly were people that had served on criminal trials before. I don't remember if those specific people were the ones that had answered that question or not.
Was there ever any disagreement with the defense and you about getting rid of some of those, dismissing would be, I guess, the word, dismissing potential jurors? You both sides decided, no, this one won't work. That one's got to go. Was there ever any discussion about or disagreement about that, or did everybody agree? Yeah, that person was good to be dismissed, but we'll move on.
Well, really no disagreement. Both sides in a case involving a potential life sentence, they get what they call 12 peremptory strikes, and so you can exercise those strikes. Each side really however you want, as long as they're race neutral, gender neutral, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so we obviously exercised our strikes on who we thought was necessary, and they exercised their strikes on who they thought was necessary.
It worked out. And you know what? There's the music. We got to get out of here. Thank you so much. Congratulations again. See you next time, everybody.